Welcome into our Backyard Brothers podcast. It's been a couple of weeks, but we're here to talk about memories. We've For a while we have started a lot of um, our podcasts with a memory from one of us about a particular sport, particular moment, and in this kind of slow slow month or slow couple of months that we've had, we decided to kind of fill an entire session with just memories from various sports and talking about them together and see what that kind of drags up from our own memories of that particular moment or how it shoots off to other ones as well. So that's how we're going to start. I think we have a total of six memories from six different sports, and so that's how uh, we're starting today. We have not decided an order. So does someone want to begin?
I can
Doesn't
talk
matter.
about a memory. Um, I kind of a fun memory in mind. This one's kind of related to the NFL. So it was probably 6 or 7 years ago. All of us, I believe all three of us were there, went to a NFL preseason game in Kansas City. Watched Kansas City Chiefs. I believe they played the Tennessee Titans. And just what's kind of fun about it is I remember I was excited. It's like, hey, get to see Alex Smith play. He was quarterback for the Chiefs at the time. Obviously had followed his career for a long time. It was cool to see him play. And then after the first quarter, it's a preseason game, so he goes to the bench, right? And I'm thinking like, okay, I now the cool guys are gone. I wonder. Now we got to watch the rest of the game with backups, and me not knowing much about college football, I wonder who the backup is, and they announce this guy, some guy from Texas Tech named Patrick Mahomes, whatever it is, and I'm like, all right, who's this loser? And I have a video on my phone of him throwing a perfect dime 40-yard touchdown. I preserved the memory on my phone of Patrick Mahomes throwing a touchdown before I ever knew who the kid was. And it's just cool to be able to say like, yeah, I remember I saw him when he was a backup before everybody knew who he was, and just remember thinking, hey, I think if he works hard, he might amount to something someday. That was a good throw. And so it's just a memory looking back of seeing him, who he was before he became somebody. Obviously, he had a good college career that I knew nothing about. But um, do either of you remember being at that game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh, it was actually the first NFL game and the only one at this point that I've ever been to. Um, and and took Ashley and I were both there, and we I was thinking the same thing, that this is a preseason game, and we're gonna see the starters for the first series, maybe the first two. It ended up being, I think, just the first series, and then they switched at that point to the backups, and um yeah, I thought something similar about Patrick Mahomes at that point. Like, I mean, I did know that the draft stock, he was the 10th overall pick, and so he was supposed to be pretty good, and so it was kind of exciting to see what this guy could do. And I'm like, I mean, he's not going to play it all this year, and he didn't, but except a couple of a quick here and there as a rookie, but. He was he was good in his time, and that he played in that game, and I think the Chiefs did win that game, right? Or no? Did they? Yeah,
I think they did. Yeah.
yeah. And so it was the same thing watching the Titans. We got to see Derrick Henry for a series or two for the Titans there, and then at that point, I think it was handed over to, oh, I can't even remember his name now, but he doesn't even play in the NFL anymore. But anyway, watching the only thing about preseason games that I like to watch is seeing these rookies that may not play a whole lot, but seeing what they can do in their first couple of games and seasons, and in Patrick Mahomes' case, it's turned into two MVPs and two Super Bowls. So
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that game pretty clear for the most part. I think what's funny is, I was always excited to watch Alex Smith play. But I was also curious to watch Travis Kelce play. And what was funny is I knew exactly what number to look for. Okay, where's 87? Where's 87? And I finally found him, and they were just warming up. I was really excited to watch him warm up, and the first two passes thrown to him, he dropped them both. And I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be great." That was my thought. And um, I can't say anything. Even after I warm up, I still suck. So, but it was fun watching that game. And I think Marcus Mariota was playing for the Titans at that point, wasn't he? I think he was.
yes, he was the
Um,
starter for the Titans at that
yeah,
point.
I think he was. So it was kind of cool to kind of watch him play because I think he the first overall or second overall pick when he was
Second,
drafted.
just
He was
behind
second.
Jameis Winston.
That's right. Okay. So I was kind of excited to watch some of these big names. But it was just a fun game, fun to be there. I'm not a Chiefs fan, but just being in a stadium watching someone play doesn't even really matter. It's just exciting, the excitement all around. Just get up and cheer when a touchdown is scored. That's what it's about for sure. Um, and it's kind of interesting because I'm not sure if you guys have heard or even watched at all the quarterback series on Netflix recently or not, but it's both Patrick Mahomes and Marcus Mariota as well. And so it's kind of cool to kind of get a glimpse into their lives at this point and what they're like, not just with football, but outside of it too. And yeah, Patrick Mahomes has turned into, one heck of a stud and is well on his way to possibly being, the GOAT. Who knows? And so, but we'll see when as time tells. But that's a good memory, Dustin.
Yeah. Also, just the being at it would be different in the regular season, but seeing the pregame traditions that Kansas City has as well in person, the tomahawk chop and the I don't personally like the way that they do the national anthem with saying the word Chiefs at the very end of the national anthem, but it's cool to be there to see it still. Uh, so every team has some kind of tradition. Every stadium has traditions. Sometimes you don't know that, you don't see it because you're watching it at home and it happens before the TV broadcast comes on, but it's fun to experience all of those when you're in person.
Yeah. I can go into my next memory since I have a college football one. We can stay in football a little bit, so I'll have a smooth transition there.
Yeah.
So this is more of just like I think we can all relate to memories of watching a college football game per se. My memory is I'm a Utah Utes fan. That's not a secret. And so I remember November 16th, 2019, um, was the first time that I was able to take my wife to a Utah game. And she had just kind of started getting into football with me, because I love football. I'm always watching it, and she wanted to obviously, kind of understand and cheer with me. And at this point, she loves football. She's a big football fan now too. But I was super excited because this is the first time that she could experience a football game in person. And so we went down to the game, and we went with my with our uncle, and we had a pretty good spot. And this is Tyler Huntley's playing, Zach Moss is playing, Bradley and I. It was a really just a good team at that point. And we were playing UCLA. It was at home, obviously, and so we watched them play, and the result of the game was Utah 49, UCLA 3. And so it was as a game of its own, not super exciting, but as a fan, being in the stadium, it's just everything is just lighting up. Everyone's just cheering. It's really exciting. I remember when we got there, we're talking about the traditions, certain teams do. It's just really, really fun and exciting to sit in the stands or to stand in the stands even. And they start turning up the music, getting really loud. Start getting hyping all these like videos about the players talking about other games and seeing highlights and starting to come out of the tunnel. And Utah, the swoop, the mascot, will ride a motorcycle out on the field. Um, and then, fireworks, and it's just really fun and exciting. And so that happens, and then they have the Utah theme song. And Pam and I had been listening to that a little bit before the game, and for it to be echoed by 60 or about 55,000 fans or so, it was almost deafening. And it was just, I looked at her and she was just like, "What is going on? This is awesome." And I was, as a big football fan, seeing my wife be able to kind of experience this and have the same excitement and joy that I was experiencing was a really, really cool moment for me. And that's probably one of my most favorite football games that I've attended in person, period. Was doing that with my wife. And then of course just watching the Utes decimate UCLA in that game was fun too, and just watching kind of Tyler Huntley and Zach Moss do really well in that game. So that was really fun. So like, a lot of people, they have their favorite teams, they go to games, things like that. So of course no one will probably remember that game in particular, if you're not a Utah fan, but I'm sure you can remember when you went to your game or your first game, or what game that you experienced something phenomenal, and the traditions that come along with it before you start. It's just something that sticks with you as a sports fan in general. So for me, for college football, that was one that was really fun that I can share with my wife for forever, and we can talk about it all the time still. So it's really cool.
Yeah, that's a good experience to have it with people you care about, people who share your interests as well. Um, as an alumni of an FBS school, I went to BYU. I was a big football fan, and so I attended all of the games in one way or another. For about 2.5 years of it, I was up in the press box. I was doing uh, I was writing stories. I was interviewing players. And so I had a little bit of different perspective on some of these games because I'm not allowed to cheer when you're up in the press box. You're not allowed to jump up and clap and yell and anything. So you are working. You are part of the stadium. So and you're part of the staff, and so uh, and you're not alone. I mean, there's lots of other people from both schools that are there, and so you're working, and so it's a different experience for me for half of my college life, being uh working there and seeing some of those games, and so and then being able to go down into the locker room and talk to players, talk to coaches, and that kind of thing. That was I had probably quite a bit different college football experience than most fans in that way, because I was working and writing the games, and so um I mean, there were times that I sat on the field and watched, and I went to University of Utah versus BYU games up in Salt Lake. I went to ones in Provo. I went to ones in Logan for Utah State, and I went to Boise once for a Boise State game as well. And so it's a different experience, and I really relished that experience. And so, um, but being able to see the fans and the players from a different perspective was fun for me. And so, yeah. Dustin, anything?
I like that everything we've talked about is live sports that we can talk about. We'll remember when we watched this, on a Super Bowl or wherever it is. But everything we've talked about so far is live, and I as both of you mentioned, there's something different about being there live. Um, First noticing that these big names are just as human as you are. They don't glow or anything like that. They're totally normal guys, being able to see them in person. But then also just the experience that there's thousands, tens of thousands, and even more people there with you, all cheering loud and experiencing the same thing at the same time in the same place, is incredible. And I have a memory for basketball that it's also a live thing, and so I'm glad that we've all talked about live events here.
Yeah. Um, I'm trying to think of whether I should share this or not, but like the craziest college football game I was ever a part of, and I was again working, was the BYU versus Utah game in Salt Lake City, where Utah fans stormed the field twice before they were supposed to. And in one case, they stormed the field, and I at this point, because of where I am, I'm up at the press box, but at that point, I had come down onto the field. I was on the field at that point. So when Utah fans stormed it twice, and they're running past me, and so they had to clear the field at least for like 10 minutes, trying to clear the field to start the play again, and then the Utah blocked the field goal, but there was a certain penalty on that play that they had to clear the field again and restart everything again, and it was insane. Uh, all of us at BYU called that the premature ejaculation. So, because ejaculation also, uh, um, so we said Utah fans have that problem a lot, I think.
That's funny. That's funny though.
Yeah.
Real quick, that's funny. I was gonna share though as well that I have I know you guys know this, but I have an opportunity to go to a live football game in October. That I'm gonna be happy to share, the experience about after that as well. But also not a secret, I'm a Seahawks fan. We're going to be going to New York for the New York Giants, Seahawks fan, October 2nd. And so I'm excited for that experience of it being live. I can definitely view the game better at home, but that's not the point, right? The point is being there live and kind of feeling the excitement. So I'm excited to have the stories to tell about either the hospitality of the Giants fans or the hostility of the Giants fans, because they could go either way. Probably the hostility more like, but we're excited for that, and I'm excited to share that experience when we're after that happens. So
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Well, since we're continuing to talk about live events, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but if we're talking about live events, I can
Yeah,
share my
keep going.
another memory that's live. So, basketball, NBA, I've been to a lot of NBA games. It's another fun experience, again, tens of thousands of people. And so there's a few years ago, living the single man life, I was able to find a weekend in which the Oklahoma City Thunder were playing back-to-back games at home. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go out to OKC and pay tickets for both games and just go to both games and stay a weekend out there. And so I did that. And the first game on this Friday night was against the Jazz. And I, as a Jazz fan, I'm wearing my Jazz shirt and got my ticket to be, in the nosebleeds way up there. And as I'm walking into the line, there's a guy in front of me with his family, and he turns and he says, "Hey, are you all alone?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Cool. Here, I had an extra ticket, 6th row." Wow. I'm like, "What?" Wow, that's incredible. And he says, "Yeah, enjoy some Oklahoma hospitality." And just walked in, right? And of course, I ended up sitting next to him with his family, but they're on the 6th row, behind one of the baskets, right? So basically looking as they would shoot free throws and everything like that. And so that was a really fun experience to be that close. Very exciting, very pleasantly surprised by Oklahoma hospitality, as the man said, and it was fun. And it ended up being one of the best games of the season. It went into double overtime. Back and forth all game. Got to see some very exciting plays, of course, with Russell Westbrook and Paul George and Carmelo Anthony were on the team at the time. And then with the Jazz, of course, Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. And so got to see some exciting things, hear the players talk. That was very fun. And then, as I said, it went into double overtime, and it was a game where, with seconds left, Paul George was able to go around a screen and basically get a floater up over Rudy Gobert, which is not an easy thing to do, but he got a floater over there. And as as the buzzer sounded, made the shot and won the game in double overtime. And so that was very fun. Me, a Jazz fan surrounded by OKC fans, and exciting. And after the game, people around me, OKC fans, were like, wow, what a game. That was exciting just for everybody. And so it was really fun to be a part of that experience, see that, and then, of course, have the blessing and the privilege to be close to feel a little more of what the player experience is like.
Yeah, that's cool. Again, a lot of my live experience is while working. And I did have the opportunity in 2010, I think 2010, 2011, one of those. I also covered Jazz games as they were pushing for the playoffs. This is a team that going to take us back. I mean, this is 12, 13 years ago. Al Jefferson, Paul Millsap, Gordon Hayward. Those were the three main ones, I think, on that team. Damari Carroll was on that team as well. And so the press box in basketball is a little bit different. It's in the lower bowl, but it's kind of between the two. It's between the higher bowl and the lower bowl, and so it's not down on the court in this case in Salt Lake City, at least for print reporters. For the game announcers, they do sit courtside, but for print reporters, they sit kind of in that between stage, and so that's where I was. And I covered a couple of games against the Orlando Magic, where at the time they had Dwight Howard still, and against the Phoenix Suns, where they still had no, against the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm sorry, where they still had Steve Nash finishing up his career there. So this is taking you back, a while. But watching those games, being part of the staff, and then I went into the locker room and talked to Damari Carroll. I talked to Gordon Hayward, and it's different. These guys are different. When you're a normal 5'10" guy, Gordon Hayward looks like a monster. The guy is 6'8", and on the court he looks like a little kid running around. But the guy's huge. And the same thing with Al Jefferson looks like a grizzly bear, and Paul Millsap is huge, and just all these guys are. You forget that these are a different breed of human being when you're up there talking to them in person. And at the time, the head coach for the Jazz was Tyrone Corbin, and so having a press conference with him and asking some questions and things like that. So I guess it's important to me that I did have that experience, since I'm no longer in the field of sports journalism anymore. But I having those experiences, and I'll jump into college basketball as well in a second. But any thoughts about what Dustin said, or about being at that game? I think us three were at a Jazz game how many years ago against the Philadelphia 76ers?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, 7 years ago.
yeah.
Yeah. And I remember, just quick on that, me and Cody, you and I went to a Oklahoma City Thunder game, probably 2018, and got to see a half-court buzzer beater by Andrew Wiggins of the Timberwolves to beat the Thunder half-court shot, something like that. It was incredible. I don't know if you remember that, Cody, but that was fun to be able to see that live.
Yeah, I vaguely remember the buzzer beater. I remember it happening. But that's kind of it. But yeah, I was gonna say that I've been to 3 NBA games at this point now. I've been, obviously, the one with both of you. The one that I went with you as well, you just mentioned, that was actually, I think you said that was it was a wedding present. You bought the ticket for me, and so it was like a couple days before I got married. So that was fun, and I appreciated that. And then but the first game I ever went to was when I was in college. It was 2017, a Jazz game, and I can't remember who they were playing now. But I went with my work. I was doing pest control at the time, and so I went with my work down to the Jazz game, and we got good seats, and we got court passes as well. So after the game ended, we were able to get onto the court. We talked to the cheerleaders. We talked to, I don't remember, I don't think we could talk to any of the players or anything. But talked to some cheerleaders. We got to shoot some balls as well on the court. And so that's kind of cool to say. I shot, I made a couple of shots on the Jazz court, you know. I've also missed more shots, um, but it was just a really cool experience, you know, all of that live games being there. Um, but yeah, it was just a really fun experience. I love those.
Yeah. Well, if I can jump straight into college basketball now, again, I've talked about some of this before, but I went to a Division I college basketball school, and at the time they were really good. BYU was a top 10 team when I started as a freshman with Jimmer Fredette and a few other players like that. They switched conferences my sophomore year into the West Coast Conference. They were in the Mountain West with Utah and all that. But when Utah went to the Pac-12, BYU went independent in football, but in basketball they joined the West Coast Conference, which is the same conference as Gonzaga and St. Mary's. So some good schools there as well. Not football schools, but really good basketball schools in this case. And my freshman year I was a fan only. I was getting into the program, but sophomore and junior years I was covering those games, sitting courtside and covering those, and there again it's hard at times to not cheer when I mean you're fully visible for the TV. You're and so I can't be there cheering, but there were a couple of players and a couple of games that I wanted to highlight. And Tyler Haws was a really good basketball player. He he and Eric Mika, who was a center there as well at BYU. They were NBA caliber players. Eric Mika was supposed to be a first round pick, but he got some bad advice and he left school a year early. He left after his sophomore or after his freshman year, I think. And everyone said this guy has a potential to be a first round pick. And he left after his freshman year and he was not even taken in the draft. And now he plays overseas. But anyway, watching these guys live was fun as well. And I saw a buzzer beater, a couple of buzzer beaters while there at the Marriott Center. One of them was against the team. His name is Matthew Dellavedova. He now plays for the Bucks, I think, Milwaukee Bucks. For St. Mary's, he hit a half-court shot to beat BYU, and it's different when you're sitting there watching this game. And but that was one. The other one I wanted to talk about was an NCAA tournament game that I was a part of. I went to Dayton, Ohio, to see the first four. I was in the press box there. They were playing Iona, and BYU was down 26 points at halftime. It was not a good game. BYU was playing very poorly in the first half, and Iona was just cruising. BYU ended up completing what still stands as the largest deficit to ever overcome in an NCAA tournament game. They won that game, down by 26, and they won by 4 or 5, I think. And it was crazy to watch the fans just start getting on BYU's side as they were completing this comeback. At the same time, over in the upper right corner, Barack Obama was there, and he was watching the game as well. Then the president of the United States, and so it was fun to be a part of that, and to everyone keeps looking at Obama. What is it? Because Obama is a very well known basketball fan, and he was there for that game as well. And so just having all of these different experiences for me as a reporter was really cool, and that was one of the coolest I've ever been a part of.
I've never had any. I don't think I've ever been to any college basketball games. Obviously watching them, and we've talked about this a lot with March Madness. That's like what I love about college basketball. So obviously I've had a lot of those experiences, but I've never had a live experience for a college basketball game.
It's interesting you talk about Matthew Dellavedova. I was thinking about a memory I could share, not live, of watching Dellavedova try to guard Stephen Curry in the 2015 NBA Finals. And, Curry's the greatest, not the greatest shooter, but the greatest at moving without the ball. And Dellavedova had to go to the hospital after one of the games. I don't remember, but he was complete. Like, didn't matter how much he drank, he was dehydrated and so sore that the medical staff literally took him to the hospital, and he spent the night in the ER trying to recover from chasing Stephen Curry around the court for an NBA Finals game. That's just a funny memory that happens to relate to Matthew Dellavedova.
Yeah. Jumping sports a little bit. I wanted to talk about baseball, and I initially had a memory that wasn't live, but I think based on our what we're doing today, I wanted to switch a little bit to live as well. Two things. Again, as part of my former career, I took an internship in New York City. And it's the mecca for journalists to take an internship. It's like taking a fashion internship in Paris, France. Like if you're a journalist and getting an opportunity to have an internship in New York City, that's where you want to be as a journalist. And so that's I jumped on it. It was an unpaid internship. I got into a lot of debt with it that eventually paid off, but you could say that it was worth it toward a career. I am no longer in that career, so maybe it wasn't, but it was worth it for an experience to be a part of that. And so, and to really learn the ins and outs of sports writing from a professional New York magazine at the time. And so, um, I covered a farm team of the Brooklyn Nets. They were or New York Mets. I'm sorry. New York Mets. This is the Brooklyn Cyclones. They were a short season single A team, so the pretty much entry level for baseball, and being able to cover that and to learn about baseball. I thought I knew until I had to cover it and had to write about it, and so being there throughout a whole season and watching a season and talking to the players as well, talking to the coach manager after every single game and getting thoughts. And I had the unique experience as well, being a fluent Spanish speaker, to take a unique approach and to talk to the players from Dominican Republic, talk to the players from Mexico, talk to the players from Cuba, and get their stories as well. A lot of people can't talk to them without a translator, but I was able to take a different angle that my editor really appreciated, and to talk about what it's like transitioning to a new culture, a new language, and trying to at the same time prove yourself as a Major League Baseball player. And so that was great. Um, I'll turn it over to you guys because we have 4 minutes left. But yeah.
Do you have anything about baseball, Dustin, you want to share real quick?
No, I remember going to a Brooklyn Cycle game with you when you were there, but great memory.
Yeah.
I think, was I there for that? I'm pretty sure I was. I think I remember walking past the Dodgers. Is that New York? I don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm not sure, but
Go ahead. Yeah.
okay. Anyway, doesn't matter. I like going to baseball games live as well, so those are a lot of fun. Has everyone gone through all their memories? Is it just me with my last one left? Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Well, with the remaining time, I'm part of the miscellaneous or other category, and I went I went weird. So I wanted to talk a little bit about just memories that my wife and I again share every 4th of July. we like to watch Joey Chestnut in the Major League Eating competition, hot dog eating. Okay, this can also turn into a conversation of if Joey Chestnut is considered an athlete or if Major League Eating is even considered a sport. But that can be for another time. But we um, other than it being kind of gross and disgusting to watch, it's also really fascinating and kind of exciting somewhat too. Joey Chestnut has a world record, I think, of 76 hot dogs and buns is what it is, and he is by a mile the number one, the best competitive eater in world history. He has won from 2007 to 2014 with 8 consecutive titles, and then 2016 to present with 8 more consecutive titles, with 16 titles for today. And apparently he also won this most recent one with a torn ligament in his leg. I'm not sure how that would affect you, but he did. That's what it said. And so we were watching a couple of years ago, we were watching him doing this, and one of the announcers, the way they covered it is just kind of humorous to me. It's very very serious and things like that. But one of the announcers said, "You can watch how he's eating defensively." That's what he said. And I said, how do you eat defensively? Do you steal someone else's hot dog? Like what is that exactly? And I don't know what he meant by that, but that was kind of humorous to me. But that's something that my wife and I have started as a tradition. Every year on the 4th of July, we'll watch the Nathan's hot dog eating contest just because it's fun for us. And then as part of that, we kind of made it where we watched whatever weird sport is on that day. So that same day we watched the American Cornhole League. And watch that happen. So that was fun and exciting. So it's just weird kind of things, but things you can still get into. That's just an American pastime. The hot dogs, that's been very very really normal. Baseball and hot dogs, and so I'm not sure if you guys have anything to share about Joey Chestnut and the eating.
I do. If we're talking
Yeah,
about live events, I went there for when I was in Brooklyn. I went to that event and I covered it actually. I was covering it as a journalist, and so I went and I watched Joey Chestnut and compete against a few other guys, and he won that year pretty easily as well. But it's gross, they dip it in water before they eat it, and it can't be appetizing. But I guess that's not exactly what they're there for. But yeah, I was there as a live event. Yeah.
yeah. I remember watching, I think it was 1 year ago, he was competing and winning, had like a 10 hot dog league, and a protester tried to rush in order to get attention, and Joey Chestnut just grabbed him by the throat and threw him back and
Yeah.
kept eating. And it's just, and so I guess that's athletic. But yeah, that was amazing that he had no business for a protester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to be kicked off. So we will see you next week about college football, and we'll see you then.